Hello ladies and gentlemen, today is the 18th of February when we're taping this. I don't actually know when it'll be up. You'll know that when you see it. I thought I'd like to talk to Brand Thornton again. You know, we've seen some different things happening in the financial markets, and that's my weakest point. And Brand has a really good handle on this, and so I thought, especially on the circumstances right now with the dangers of Obamacare and what it's doing to the economy, I thought Brand could give us some real good insight as to what's happening and what people are trying to do with their money at this point in time, people that have it to spend. So without a whole lot of further introduction, I'm just going to go ahead and go to Brand here and ask him to kind of give us a little breakdown on what he sees right now and what the future might hold for us. So again, Brand, I want to thank you for doing this, and I'll just kind of let you have the floor. I have a few questions I'll ask as we go along, but why don't we start off with where the petrodollar went, as you talked about before, where it is today, and what the consequences are.
Well, if I could digress just a little bit for those folks that didn't get to see the last video clip that we did, we discussed the petrodollar in Syria and why there was this push by the United States government to take over Syria. It was their way of propping up the petrodollar. They had to get control of certain oil fields in the world, namely the big one was Iran, and there's this agreement between Russia, Syria, and Iran for a new pipeline to take oil and gas to the Mediterranean. Well, and also what was happening at that time is you had some of the largest economies in the world that were going over to a gold standard, namely China. And there's actually a whole slew of them now that are going over to a gold standard, and they're only going to accept payment for the petrol in gold, which would crash the U.S. dollar, the world's reserve currency. And that's exactly what we predicted was going to happen, and it is happened, and it's happening right now. So with that in mind, one of the other things that we discussed is what was going to happen to our economy. I brought up a point at that time that there's huge amounts of money in offshore bank accounts by the elite and rich of this country, current politicians, former politicians, judges, corporations, and they would be forced into reinvesting that money into the infrastructure of this country. There's no other place it can go. The rest of the world community won't touch it. As far as they're concerned, it's nothing but toilet paper. And so that's exactly what's starting to happen right now. I just saw recently where I believe it was $234 billion is being repatriated and invested in the infrastructure of this country. And we're talking about refineries, oil refineries, steel mills, textile plants, things of that nature. Now, I know one of the things that Roy wanted to talk about is what's going to specifically happen to this economy. Is it going to completely crash? A lot of economists that we're seeing in the alternative news media are saying, you know, they're pretty much writing off the dollar is dead. It's over with. We're going to have hyperinflation. Everything's going to fall apart. And I subscribe to Karen Hudis' school of thought in this respect, and I kind of found her really in the last 6 months. But one of the things that she's very optimistic, and I think she's right on. And so we're not going to have hyperinflation, and here's why. We're going to have some inflation. You're going to see gold go up. It's already started going up. Silver's already started going up. You are going to have a certain amount of inflation until it balances out. Because when this money is invested in our infrastructure, we're going to start producing again. There will be production in this country. And now when we have production, there's something to buy. You can spend that money and it'll balance out. It's, you know, supply and demand. It will balance out, and we're going to be just fine. So from that respect, I want to encourage everybody, don't panic. Do not panic. The worst thing you can do in these type of situations is panic. America is very, very blessed by God. We have the greatest natural resources of any country in the world. We have phenomenal technology. We have a great workforce. We can produce, and we will produce. And this country is going to get back on its feet like never before. We're going to have some political upheavals that are really happening right now. There's dissension amongst the ranks. Roy brought up a point. Why don't these people invest their money someplace else rather than America? Because the political agenda by this administration is really to destroy America. Well, there's dissension among the ranks. They don't want to be broke. You know, you've got these politicians, retired politicians, that have huge amounts of money in these offshore bank accounts. Some of it's here, but most of it's in the offshore bank accounts because they can't account for it. So that's why they're bringing it back to this country, is they want to maintain the value of that, the purchasing power of that money. And so you have this, we're having this dissension within the ranks that you don't hear a whole lot about, but you are seeing the effects of it. You're seeing these bankers that are either being killed or committing suicide at an alarming rate. There are investigations that are taking place that, you know, you catch wind of them a little bit here, a little bit there, and these investigations are uncovering a lot of fraud. You haven't heard much about LIBOR in a while, but now I just saw where they're going after another bank CEO over the LIBOR scandal. So they're tying it up. They're tying it up, and they're cutting off. One of the neat things about this whole thing is they're forcing them to cut the money off, the money supply off to these illegal types that, you know, these banksters, these mercenaries around the world. And unfortunately, that's what our military has become, is nothing but a bunch of mercenaries. Well, you can see what's happening. They're cutting off the money to them too. And so that's a good thing. And if they can't beat us over the head with the U.S. military, they're in trouble.
And I kind of wanted to ask about that specifically, Brand. Of course, you know, there's been the move to demonize conservatives, gun owners, returning vets, et cetera, you know, Christians, that kind of thing. And of course, as every opportunity comes their way to destroy the Bill of Rights, in particular the First and Second Amendments, and the Second Amendment, of course, being the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Wouldn't it be to the elite's advantage who are reinvesting this money to still push that particular agenda of disarming the American people?
I'm sure they are going to. I think at least to a certain degree they have no choice, because all of this corruption is becoming more and more obvious. And they're right at the heart of it. You know, and yeah, fine, hey, you're going to invest in America, that's good, but the fact of the matter is you stole the money in the first place. So, yeah, they still want to push that agenda with all they have. It's not going to work. There's just too many things that are countering it. You've got the American people that are just waking up in general. You have sheriff departments all over the United States that are renewing their oath of office. And they've sent information, or they've sent letters to the Obama administration. We're not going to. And look what happened there in Colorado. It's a really good example. And they were able to recall those politicians that pushed that. So you're seeing it's nip and tuck. It really is nip and tuck.
Would you say we're in an actual war at this point?
Oh, yeah. You know, what's the definition of war? When you think about it, as soon as they start to take any of your rights, that's a declaration of war. You know, it's just this one's, it's not an all-out bloodfest at this point in time, and I don't know if it'll ever reach that point, and I really hope it doesn't. As we've talked about
right.
many times, we're dead set against that. We want a peace.
Nobody wins in one of those.
Nobody wins, you know. You just end up destroying everything. You know.
And talking about destroying everything, now we were talking earlier about the one cog in the wheel that you see right now as being the big problem for the United States, and that's the Affordable Care Act and what it's going to do to the economy. Could you kind of expand on that?
I think it's DOA. I really do. You know, they keep pushing it and trying to make criminals out of everybody, but you got complete dissension from your hospitals to your doctors to the young people that are supposed to prop this thing up financially. It is DOA. It's going nowhere. And the first time they try to arrest one person you will see, I think it'll blow up in their face. Politically, it'll blow up in their face. They're already finding people, and that's blowing up in their face. So having said that, when you look at this thing is the most abominable thing that I can imagine. It would have taken control over every facet of your life. Every facet of your life. If you refuse vaccinations, okay, you're going to be fined. Well, or you'll become a criminal. One of the interesting things, I just saw a poster where this guy said he was broke, poor, he didn't have the money for health insurance. Well, under Obamacare, he still doesn't have the money for health insurance, but he's being fined on top of it. So, yeah, this thing was purely satanic.
What do you think it was designed to actually do? Do you think it was designed to crash the economy, to destroy the healthcare system, to make us dependent on government? And even more sinister would be the idea of preventing people from getting care so that they die.
Absolutely. I don't know personally. To me, it's very transparent. I just saw a thing on YouTube where a family of fairly well-to-do people, a husband and wife, 2 kids, they were successful business people, and they just found out their kids aren't covered. Okay, they paid all this money, this huge deductible. It's costing them, I forget, like $800 a month. Their deductible is $16,000 for everything. So, and then they found out their kids weren't. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Their kids weren't covered.
Their kids aren't covered, and now they're complaining. And I'm like, wait a minute. Are you really that stupid that you ever thought this thing? You're successful business people. Come on, you're more intelligent than that. That you for 1 minute thought this thing was actually going to work. Did you read any part of it? Did you look at any part of it? The things, you got the death panels in there.
It doesn't cover pre-existing conditions like they promised it would.
The whole thing is a joke. It's not affordable. It's just total enslavement. And little by little, people are waking up to that. Actually, I think they're waking up pretty fast to that now. That's on the news quite a bit. I even see negative reports by CNN and these liberal rags like that. And so when they start reporting it, the thing's in trouble. So it's in trouble.
Well, to shift gears to a slightly different topic, we want to talk just for a minute about Wall Street and the Federal Reserve's quantitative easing program. And of course, that's all a joke as well. But of course, it's touted that it's helping the economy. I'd just like you to discuss for a minute, is QE helping Main Street, or is it only helping Wall Street?
Well, ultimately, it's going to be just Wall Street. That's it. Okay, because we have our monetary system is a debt system. Okay, I see where they're trying to raise the debt. In fact, I think they just voted on raising the debt ceiling again. It's hidden in plain sight. It's not even hidden. It's in plain sight. Every time we need money to grease the skids of industry, we need capital. It's borrowed, and it has to be paid back with interest. They don't print the interest, so ultimately there's going to have to be another bailout for the banks. Otherwise, they're going to fail, and it's just this vicious cycle. It goes over and over and over. The boom and bust, and then bailouts, and they lobby the politicians, and you end up losing rights over it and privileges. You see your Constitution eroded away by this system, and it is an impossible system. It was, it was originally designed. The system was originally designed to leach out all the precious metals out of any economy. That was the original design of it, and enslave the people. And they run into some problems, that I assume that they never really foresaw. That's a little hard to believe, but this country has vast reserves of precious metals. In the state of Nevada, as I mentioned before, if it was an independent nation, it'd be the 3rd largest gold producing nation in the world. And so, this solvent money keeps coming into the economy, and tends to keep things going. And of course, it's all relative. So if they could print enough money, theoretically, they could still take it all. And in a sense, that's what they're doing. I think the whole purpose of that originally, I shouldn't say originally, but the whole purpose of these bailouts and things like this is they started realizing in this information age that the American people or the world community was going to wake up to their dirty little deeds. And rather than conceding, saying, hey, we made a mistake, we want to be a good neighbor, no. They just looked at it like this: we need to get control over these people, every part of their life. And so it boiled down to this: it's either us or them. They put us in an impossible situation. It's blowing up in everybody's face. They got to get control over us, or we will take vengeance upon them.
And that brings up probably the final point we probably want to talk about today. And you knew I was going to go here eventually. How do you feel about Obama? You were describing him earlier. And, I look at this guy, supposedly a constitutional lawyer. In my estimation, if you want to wreck, we were talking about contractors, if something goes wrong on a job and the general contractor, whoever, does something to somebody, or they want to take down the project, and let's say that there's an electrical problem that they find later. Usually it's an electrician that's done that. If the problem shows up to sabotage the project, for instance, an electrical situation, they could use an electrician to sabotage that knowingly. So here we have Obama as a constitutional attorney, and yet he has violated the Constitution on every turn. So did they bring him in here to be the wrecker of the contract?
Absolutely. I think he's just this incredible illusion. He's a useful idiot. His allegiance is to Islam, first and foremost. That's where his allegiance lies. And he thought he was just going to outmaneuver him.
Outmaneuver
the true puppet masters.
Okay.
Which, you can trace all the way back
to the Jesuits.
I think they will kill him.
Okay.
I think his days are absolutely numbered.
Okay, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but since you brought that up. So he's tried to outwit the puppet masters, and so where does that go from here?
Well, that's, if I were a prophet, I would start prophesying, but I don't think that's the case. It's going to be very interesting. I think ultimately, I've said a long time ago, I believe he is the beast, and he's trying to turn his power and our country, which is his power and authority, over to the Antichrist. Okay, now if he is the beast, what does it say? He's going to be turned over to the burning flame. He's going to be destroyed. And I see ultimately that's what's going to happen. The part that I think that they're going to try and do is that they're going to try to blame it on some patriot group, false flag patriot group, crazy,
The last people that would hurt Americans are patriots.
Yeah.
So as soon as you see that, you know that there's a problem.
Be ready for this false flag when this one happens, because they got to get rid of him. I think he was given ultimatums a long time ago. So he accepted the challenge. He tried to outmaneuver him, and it isn't working. And everything's starting to unravel from A to Z with his administration. I mean, the guy is actually turned into a joke. I saw where Ted Nugent called him a subhuman mongrel, which fits perfectly for him. He's neither white nor black. Okay, so he's a mongrel. You can't call that racist. So, and then he is subhuman. He doesn't care. He would have every woman in a burqa. He would have Sharia law enforced in this country every inch of the way, and that's his goal. Make no mistake about that. That's what he wants. So, and that'll never fly in this country.
So let's say that the end result is that, okay, these investors begin to jumpstart the economy again because they have no other choice with their dollars. They have to put them here. Nobody else will take them. That's kind of the idea. You have a political administration that is trying to turn the country over to foreign interests and to destroy the Constitution and Bill of Rights. And somebody's going to get desperate here. There's obviously dissension in the ranks. So if this thing, God forbid, but as you and I have talked about, it's very likely that this is going to fall apart at the central government level, which would then, of course, cause the states to be split up similarly to the Civil War.
You're seeing succession on every level right now. It seems like every state's got their own different thing they don't like California, they pass laws against the NDAA, and yet they allow other things, the confiscation of legal firearms. Then you look at Colorado, and they're succeeding for different reasons. One's the Second Amendment, but I find it very interesting that they're legalizing marijuana. By the way, folks, is the greatest medicinal plant on the face of the earth. It always has been. I don't know anything better. Then you just go on down the line. You've got states that are succeeding because of Obamacare. Was it North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas? So you've got all these different reasons for succeeding, and that's exactly what you're seeing happening. Now, the ultimate thing is, this much I will say, I truly believe that we will eventually pick the best things, which are all constitutional. And we'll look around, all these states, you've got the governors that are working with Karen Hudis on all this stuff already. They're already working on this. And we're going to, I believe we'll be able to pull it back together. We're going to restore our Constitution, the Bill of Rights. What's really interesting to me is every time they try to do something that's going to destroy this country, in so many aspects, there's always a silver lining. Just like this, the homosexual agenda, okay? Well, people are going to realize you can't have the government enforcing marriage, period, regardless of what kind of union it calls for. People are going to say, get out, leave people alone.
Yeah, they've only been in this business for a little less than 200 years, and yet everybody thinks that this is the way it's always been, that the state grants the marriage license. And we never used that until 200 years ago, and it was obviously another usurpation of private contracts by the government.
Exactly. Marriage, God set the parameters of marriage. And we're probably getting off the track a little bit, but that's what I like about these things. We get in a potpourri of information, and we just let it flow. But God set the parameters of marriage. Now, whether Jack and Joe want to use their own ideology, it's fine. Just go do it.
Just don't ram something down everybody else's throat.
Just leave us heterosexual straight types alone. Now, and to me, and when they talk about gay marriage, it's an oxymoron. They can call it what they want. I don't care. But the neat thing about this whole thing is what I see is you're going to get the government out of the first holy institution ever given to man. What about the separation of church and state? They never, ever had any right to get involved in personal relationships, regardless. It's just not in the. It's just not in the. The interest of humanity to start making laws about everything. You just can't do that. The over legislature, they make laws on everything. I forget every year how many thousands of new laws are on the books.
Oh, yeah.
Are you kidding me? That's why things like the IRS, everybody wants to be in compliance. Well, I shouldn't say everybody because it's going down the tubes too. The fact of the matter is there are so many laws in the U.S. tax code and in the IRS tax code. If they want you, they got you.
Well, they're not laws technically in the IRS tax code, correct? That's all a sham. It's it's a fraud that's been pulled over the eyes of the American people, and they're using nothing more than precedent now to keep it going because there is no law.
Yeah, and if we can get the American people to wake up, and they are waking up despite chemtrails, despite the fluoride in the waters, despite the GMO.
By the way, Harvard came out and said that fluoride was in fact causing an IQ drop in the population. Yeah. Harvard study, it was in Time magazine, just so everybody knows. Last Friday, I believe it came out. So you can go look at that. But as you were saying, so there are all these things going around to dumb us down, to make us sick. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
that's fine. Yeah, and it's amazing when I stop and think. Let me qualify myself. I saw this a long time ago. A long time ago, I quit drinking fluoridated water. I'm very careful of the foods that I eat. I'm not going to say that I eat the best, but I am careful on certain things, and I do supplement my diet with very, very good stuff. The chemtrails, I have nothing. I haven't found a real way to combat that except for just taking in a lot of antioxidants and vitamins that keep flushing it out of my system. Here where we live, I mean, every day, oh my gosh, you look up and it's amazing. The chemtrails.
It's definitely not an atmospheric condition that causes that. It's
and I got a question about this whole thing. I just saw an interesting thing on the news that happened back in the late 40s, in the 40s, with the United States Army conducting these tests in St. Louis, where they were poisoning people on a regular basis. Now there's this outrage. People, nothing stopped. Look up in the sky. Nothing is stopped. Your government is still poisoning you. Let's get outraged now about what's happening now. I mean, there's nothing we can do about what happened in the 50s. Just look at what they're doing to you now. Now, I noticed I started having respiratory problems. Roy, you can ask him. Every morning I wake up. What I do for the first hour, I cough up mucus. The good thing is it's coming up, and because I take these nutrition.
And it's not just old age, folks, because Brand is one of the healthiest guys at his age I've ever seen. So it has nothing to do with that.
I'm inhaling this barium and this aluminum oxides and everything on a regular basis. Fortunately, I'm able to keep my system clean. But not everybody has the knowledge and background that I have. And so you take the average person, they're still drinking fluoridated water. Now they're eating GM. By the way, go if you're going to buy food, go to Trader Joe's, okay? They absolutely refuse to have any GMO foods there. And Roy and I, we've been, running a little test, just off the cuff here, about the foods and how it makes us feel, and we have found a marked difference between. We're
not trying to plug Trader Joe's, folks. No, this is just a fact.
Yeah, it's just a fact. The foods that we buy there, I mean, when you get our age, one of the best things that happen to you is have a good bowel movement. And we bought some. Roy's experimented with foods at your average store. And I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to hurt them. But I've done the same thing, and you have some real problems when you eat those foods. And we exclusively shop at Trader Joe's. Okay, so anyhow, I've been at this. I'll be 62 years old. I've been at this for 40 plus years in experimenting with dietary laws, and if I have an IQ that's higher than the average person, I'm going to give the credit directly to the fact that I haven't been poisoned. So if you're having mental disconnects, is what I call them. If you can't articulate what you're trying to say, if things don't come spontaneously to you, start looking in your refrigerator, start checking your water. Really, people.
You mean isn't that schizophrenic or paranoid to think like that? Or to have a food supply, or to have weapons, or to have commodities you can trade for barter? Yeah. A lot of people say that, but you're living proof of
sure. They want to mark you, brand you as an extremist, and to destroy your credibility. That's all that's about, And please don't go along with these people anymore. They're not really people. They're demonic. They're out to destroy you. They don't care. So many of them know the truth of everything that we're talking about right now. They know all this stuff. They don't care about you. They don't care about the average human being. They don't want to help you. They just want to destroy you. And everything that they're doing in this world is destructive. We have opportunities right now with the information age and with the technology that we have to bring out this free energy sources. They're everywhere. Do you realize right now, for the last at least 2 years, Japan's been marketing a car internationally that runs on water. It's not a big mystery.
What's the company that's doing that, Brandy? Do you remember?
I don't even remember offhand.
Okay,
I showed you.
Yes, I just wanted to bring up some people who know.
Put a liter of water in there and drive 200 miles. The only byproduct is water. So. And then there's you can get generators now that run off the world's electromagnetic field, and free energy in the house. They've been perfected in Australia. They're marketing them around the world. Oh, you don't see them here though, now, do you? Okay, no, you're not going to see them here. Tesla came up with this stuff a long time ago. Look what they did to him. There were some letters that were finally revealed from. I forget the guy, Rockefeller, when he originally endorsed Edison, and Tesla comes along and just got way better stuff, way better stuff, and he was going to have electrical cars and things like that you wouldn't even need gas and oil. You wouldn't need gas and oil for anything. And when this was proven, the Rockefeller, the great grandfather of the current Rockefeller, said, we were here first. He came later.
Yeah, it was about them, not about humanity.
Exactly.
As usual.
We were here first. He came later.
And that's what government should be here to protect us from, is that kind of attack on our personal well-being. So that was definitely wrong.
And they had J.P. Morgan take all of his financing away from him. They destroyed him financially, and then they destroyed him in the eyes of the people. They had him arrested and thrown in jail.
Wow.
They destroyed, not at the time they destroyed this man, they laid the foundations of destruction of this country too. These are the type of people you're dealing with. These are when I say subhuman people, I mean subhuman people. You know, and people need to wake up and recognize that. You know, there's this Bible scripture in Matthew talk about the wheat and the tares growing together. You wouldn't be able to tell who they were until our time. You can see who they are now. And what does it say about the tares? They're bound in bundles and they are burned. So that's what they got coming.
Brand, it's always interesting. We probably ought to let the viewers have a little break here. We've been going on for over half an hour. I want to thank you again for doing this. We will do another one of these in the near future, probably on a slightly different topic. You're very well versed and read, and you keep track of everything that's going on. So just thanks for doing this for us again today.
You're welcome. And we'll take the show on the road one of these days.
Also, I think we should keep in mind that in order for a good change to come to the United States, the people really need to start choosing what's right. You know, I've said for a long time that we need to take sides. We need to choose good or evil, darkness, light, life, death. You know, we have to make those choices. And if we make the wrong ones, if we make the ones that are on the evil side, then these blessings that Brand is talking about that could happen will be turned against us. We need to renounce war, proclaim peace, demand accountability from people in government that they abide by the principles of liberty as outlined at least in the Bill of Rights, even if we change some of the other administrations of our government. And we need to protect the innocent. We have to renounce abortion. We have to, like I said, renounce war. We have to be prepared to look at what really is true, what really is right, and do those things. How do we know? By the fruits, what they make you feel like. It was once said by a Jewish rabbi when he was asked to describe the law as a student stood on one leg. He said, "Do not that which you hate to your neighbor." We heard it later by Jesus, who said, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." So I believe that while the American people have it in them to do the right thing, they have to choose and act to do so, or all of these forces will be turned against us. I hope you found that interesting with Brand. We'll do this again. I just want to end with a little caveat, and that is that, as always, you need to be prepared for any eventuality. And in this particular situation, if Brand is correct and the economy of the United States does manage to kickstart again, there are going to be people that will be very upset about that, very much like a cornered rat. And at that point, things could get very dangerous. So you need to be prepared either way. And keep yourself informed and always stay aware. You know, that situational awareness, that conscious awareness of what's happening in the world is for your own good.